Professionals told you what mattered by what they refused to break. Alden Holt entered Harrow Station under active assault and saw 9 attackers pressing east and center while leaving the west side almost untouched. He had to stop the next push before it reached Quiet Cell. Then a man appeared beside him where no man could have crossed the room. Alden turned. The impossible man wanted the cell left closed. Regional pressure across the Gulf had narrowed the outside response window, and Senec had chosen it, is less than #0. 4# is greater than Alden's unit, carried the standing immediate response task for armed incidents at Harrow, which was why 3 people were already through the East Service side, while heavier help was still too far away. The East Service yard was all hard glare, dry wind, and hot metal. Alden caught a service frame with one gloved hand and pulled himself behind it as another impact struck center. 3 moving, Rhea said. Center side. Any west. Nothing. Sabine Acker came in behind them. They've had lines on west for at least 10 seconds. And they haven't used them, Alden said. Rhea looked over. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than. You're reading restraint under fire. I'm reading professionals. A sharp report cracked across center. Something struck the concrete lip above the opening and dropped grit across Alden's sleeve. West remained untouched. Sabine said, that could be angle, not intent. Then watch the next one. 2 attackers crossed the center opening while a third held farther back. A brief flash cut from the east side glare. The strike chewed the edge of a center support instead of carrying west. They had the angle to make that side dangerous and declined it again. Alden pointed toward center. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than. We move inside. We make them choose. Choose what? Rhea asked. Time or damage. Sabine's eyes stayed on west. And you think they'll choose time? If that side matters alive. Rhea gave a short breath. Comforting. Rhea leaned out, checked the center lane, and came back. They're disciplined enough to wait. Then make waiting expensive, Alden said. With what? Distance. Keep them outside the center structure. Sabine said, and if they force west? They haven't. That is not the same as they won't. No. It means the reason matters is less than #0. 3# is greater than, Rhea said. You 2 can finish the philosophy after we survive the doorway. They crossed. Inside the doorway, the approach narrowed enough that the first attacker had to show himself before he could cross. Alden met the advance from hard cover. A report snapped in the confined space, and the man checked. The second backed off rather than force the exchange. Stopped, Rhea said. Not stopped, Alden said. Resetting. Sabine glanced at him. What do you know? That they need something west intact. You don't know what? No. You don't know why. No is less than #0. 3# is greater than, Rhea said. Good. We're all feeling informed. Alden kept watching the pattern. We know enough to stop helping them. They moved deeper into center. Outside, the wind had flattened sound. Inside, hard surfaces threw every footfall back at them. Alden heard motion twice when only one person moved. A Harrow defender waved them toward the west passage. Alden pointed east. Hold center. Don't chase anything that gives ground. Rhea said, you expecting that? I'm expecting people this disciplined to adapt. Senec's people, Sabine answered before Alden could. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. If the identification was right. Alden looked at her. Victor Senec. That's the name tied to the team. What does he want? If Harrow knew that, we'd have started with it. Another impact rolled through the structure. Alden said, then we start with what he protects. They reached the west side passage. The sound changed there. Quieter. Closer. The sea wind vanished behind concrete and sealed surfaces, leaving breath, boots, and the distant pressure from center. Rhea stopped at the junction. East movement again. Hold here, Alden said. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than. Sabine looked past him. Alden. He followed her gaze. A man stood beside the west wall. Alden had seen the space empty 1 heartbeat earlier. His hand moved before thought caught up. The stranger did not flinch. Mid-30s. Plain clothes. Pale with effort. No weapon. No door behind him. No route by which he could have crossed the corridor. Rhea said, "What are you looking at?" Alden kept his eyes on the man. "You don't see him." "See who?" Sabine took 1 step closer, then stopped. "I see something is less than #0. 3# is greater than." The stranger's mouth moved. The voice came from Alden's right. The man stood directly in front of him. Alden felt his certainty slip sideways. "Don't," the man said. Alden fixed his gaze on the stranger's face. "Who are you?" "Not open." "Not open what?" The stranger looked west. "Quiet cell." Alden said, "Are you inside it?" The man's expression tightened. Rhea called from the junction, "Movement center. They're coming back." Alden did not look away. "Name." The stranger swallowed. Even that seemed to cost him. "Lucan is less than #0. 3# is greater than Lucan what?" The next answer came from slightly left of where he stood. "Trask." Sabine said, "Alden, contact's changing." "What does that mean?" "I'm not calling it anything yet." Lucan looked at Alden. Focused. Not pleading. Alden said, "You want the cell kept shut." Lucan managed a single nod. "Why?" Center erupted with renewed movement. Rhea shouted, "Now." Alden turned toward the sound, then back. Lucan was already becoming difficult to hold in one place. He did not glow or fade. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. Alden simply lost confidence that the space in front of him contained a man at all. "Lucan." Nothing. The corridor was empty again. Sabine said, "We need to move." Alden looked west once more. The attackers had refused to damage this side from the beginning. Now a man connected to Quiet Cell had appeared where no physical man could have arrived and asked Alden to keep it closed. Alden understood none of the mechanism. He understood the human pressure. "They still need west intact," he said. Rhea checked center. And the next push, already moving, is less than #0. 3# is greater than. Alden turned back toward it. The next push never came. That bothered Alden more than another impact would have. Center went quiet. Rhea held east. Sabine stayed west. The patch where Lucan had appeared was empty. "Movement?" Alden asked. "Pulling back east," Rhea said. 2 confirmed, maybe more beyond the service side. Sabine looked at him. "You think they're done?" "No." Rhea glanced over. "Good. I'd hate to be the optimist." Alden moved only far enough to see the center opening. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. The assault team peeled east in measured pairs. Each man disappearing only after the next had a hard surface between himself and Harrow. Nothing about it looked hurried. They left no loose gear, no blind scramble, no spiteful fire into west. "They want us outside," Alden said. Rhea watched the east side. "Could be regrouping. Could be leaving." "No." Sabine said, "You sound very certain for a man who just spoke to an empty wall." Alden ignored the part of that sentence he could not use. If they were leaving, they'd stop protecting west. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than. Nothing had touched the isolation side. That was enough. A Harrow defender, farther inside, gestured toward the east service approach, where the retreat had opened a route that looked almost too generous. Rhea saw it too. "We could press them while they're moving. That's what they want. You see a trap. I see space they didn't have to give us." Rhea nodded once. So we stay boring. We stay alive. Alden kept the three of them inside center. Rhea said, if they know we won't chase, they'll change it. Yes. Soon. They already are. Sabine looked east. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than. Then, what are you waiting for? The part they think we won't notice. Rhea said, that sounds annoyingly like confidence. It's observation. Worse. Less than 20 seconds later, a figure crossed the far side of the yard. Another settled behind the return path, visible only when the glare moved off his shoulder. Anyone who had chased would have entered with both routes behind him covered. Alden watched them abandon the setup once no one entered it. They had adapted. So had he. Senec, he asked. Sabine gave him a quick look. That's the name tied to the recovery team, is less than #0. 3# is greater than recovery. That's the word Harrow had. Not assault. You're hearing the assault. Alden almost asked what Harrow meant by recovery, but a sound from west stopped him. Not a voice. The sense of one. He turned. Lucan stood in the same bounded area as before. This time Alden saw the wrongness sooner. Lucan was directly ahead, but the first breath he took seemed to come from beside Alden's shoulder. Alden did not move toward him. Lucan. The man looked relieved that Alden had remembered the name, then irritated by the relief. That was quick, Lucan said. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. Who are you? Bad timing. Try again. Lucan's mouth tightened. Lucan Trask. Are you inside quiet cell? A pause. Yes. Alden heard the answer from the wrong side of the corridor. For one ugly second, center seemed to shift with it. Rhea's position felt farther east than Alden knew it was. Sabine's footstep landed behind him, then registered to his left. He fixed his eyes on the floor seam. Physical line. Real position. Sabine noticed. Alden. I'm fine. No, you're compensating. Useful distinction later is less than #0. 3# is greater than. Lucan said. Listen. Alden looked back at him. Can you see the attackers? No. Can you see outside this corridor? No. Then give me what you can. Sabine watched the empty space. He answered one useful question. Which one? Rhea asked. He has limits. Alden said, we knew that when he couldn't stay. No. We knew he vanished. Now we know he can't see for us. Rhea looked toward center. So, the impossible man is not our reconnaissance plan. He was never our plan, Alden said. Good. I was worried our standards had slipped. Lucan steadied himself. His outline did not brighten or flicker. It simply looked harder to trust. They can't get what they want by breaking it. The cell. Lucan's eyes moved toward west. Alden said, why? Lucan opened his mouth. A burst of movement hit center. Rhea shouted, contact. Alden turned toward the sound. The shift in attention cost him. The corridor seemed to place Rhea's voice too far away. He corrected by sight, not sound, and drove back toward center with Sabine behind him. 2 attackers touched the center opening and stopped short of a full push, is less than #0. 4# is greater than a shot, struck the hard edge beside Alden and threw a chalky chip across the floor. He stayed behind the support until the first man exposed enough of the approach to be forced back. The second never got a clean passage. Seconds later, both withdrew again. They're probing, Rhea said. They're watching, Alden answered. He looked back toward west. Lucan was still there, barely. Finish it, Alden said. Lucan's voice came from somewhere Alden knew was wrong. Don't let them make you move me. Alden held on that sentence. Not open the cell. Not let them move him. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. Different words. Same pressure. Why would we move you? Lucan's expression tightened. Then he was gone. Alden took one step after the empty space and stopped himself. Across center, one of Senec's people had line of sight into the corridor. Not to Lucan. To Alden. The observer had been watching Alden, not West. He had seen Alden address empty space, wait for an answer, then change his body angle the instant the contact ended. Alden felt the mistake before he could name it. "They saw me," he said. Sabine followed his gaze. "Saw what?" "Enough is less than #0. 3# is greater than Rhea." "Checked the center opening." "Meaning?" "They know I got something." "What?" Alden looked at the place where Lucan had vanished. "That part they don't know." From east, the assault team began moving again, no longer offering the same open route. Senec had learned something. So had Alden. Lucan could reach him briefly. The contact could not show him the enemy. It could make his own senses less reliable. And whatever Lucan was trying to prevent, Senec's people were already adjusting around it. The attack changed before Alden understood what Lucan had meant. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. No one came straight at West. Instead, movement touched center in short bursts, enough to keep Rhea turning east while Sabine stayed near the isolation side. The pattern had stopped looking like a push and started looking like pressure applied with fingertips. "To its center," Rhea said. One showed, one disappeared. "Don't follow the second," Alden said. "I wasn't planning to." Sabine looked toward the empty spill zone. "You want Lucan back?" "I want one answer. You may not get the one you want." "I don't need the one I want." A hard impact struck somewhere east of center. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. The sound arrived cleanly. Alden preferred it that way. Rhea leaned around the interior corner, checked the lane, and came back. "They're not committing." "They don't have to," Alden said. "They know we're watching West." Sabine said, "Then decide what you need before he appears." Alden looked at the place Lucan had occupied twice. Whether opening the cell helps him. Sabine's expression tightened. "That is not a small question. It's the next one." Movement flashed at center. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than. Alden stepped into the lane just long enough to force the attacker back, then returned before the second position could punish the exposure. Rhea said, "They're measuring us." "So are we." The air beside the west wall seemed to lose agreement with itself. Lucan was there. This time, Alden heard the man's first breath from behind him. He did not turn toward the sound. "Lucan." Lucan's face looked drawn. "Still here." "Inside the cell." "Yes." "Do you want out?" Lucan stared at him. Alden held the question where it was. "No pity. No promise. Is less than #0. 3# is greater than. Do you want us to open it?" "No." The answer came fast enough to kill every ordinary interpretation except the ones Alden had not tested yet. "Are they forcing you to say that?" "No." "Are you afraid of what Harrow will do if you leave?" "No." "Are you hurt?" "Not like that." Rhea called center movement. Alden lifted one hand without looking away. "Hold." Lucan's voice shifted a foot to the right while his body stayed still. Alden felt the old floor seam under his boot and trusted that instead. "Then tell me why." Lucan closed his eyes for a moment. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than. Opening it changes things. "What things?" "The thing around me." "Echo-wake?" Sabine asked. Lucan looked toward her voice, though Alden could not tell if he saw her. "Yes." Alden glanced at Sabine. "How much of that do you actually know?" She kept one shoulder toward center while she answered. "The cell suppresses echo-wake. Change the containment. The surrounding conditions change with it." "Worse." "I've seen states worsen after containment changed." I have not seen enough to promise that opening this door causes one result every time. Lucan gave a weak, humorless smile. Is less than #0. 4# is greater than she's careful. She has reasons. So do I. Alden said, you've been outside before. Lucan's expression hardened. Not an answer. Alden, let it go. When you say don't open it, you mean that literally? Yes. Even if Senec gets closer? Yes. Even if we can reach you? Lucan's face changed at that. Not fear. Something sharper. Yes. The private rule inside Alden pressed against the answer. Reachable meant extract. Except the reachable man was telling him extraction could make the threat worse, is less than #0. 4# is greater than. A burst of human movement broke across center.
Now, Rhea said. Alden turned. 2 attackers pressed the center opening while a third struck farther east, making Harrow's defenders divide attention. The first man came in just far enough to force a response, then withdrew before Alden could close distance, not trying to win the lane, trying to keep them occupied. Alden shifted Rhea half a step west and kept Sabine behind the hard edge of the corridor. Don't open anything, he said. Sabine looked at him. That sounded broader than the question. It's the decision we have. For now. The attackers broke contact again, too cleanly. Rhea watched the east side. They're changing shape. Alden saw it too. Fewer bodies were touching the obvious lane. More movement appeared farther off the line that led directly toward west. They stopped spending effort on the cell, he said. Sabine followed the pattern. Maybe they gave up on it. No. Rhea said, you have a better explanation? They learned direct pressure keeps us exactly where we need to be. Lucan's projection weakened. Alden turned back. One more thing. If we leave the cell closed, are you safe? Lucan took 2 looks. Safer. Not safe. Safer. Alden filed the difference away. What are they trying to make us do? Lucan's eyes fixed on him. I don't know. That answer mattered almost as much as the refusal. Lucan's ignorance was useful in its own way. He was not feeding Alden an enemy picture. He was telling him where his own certainty ended, and freedom was no longer on the simple side of the equation. Before Lucan disappeared completely, Sabine said, there's another piece. Some of these coherent manifestations have coincided with quieter local disturbance. Alden looked at her. Coincided. That is as far as I'll take it. She glanced towards center before looking back. I don't know which one drives the other, or whether either does. Lucan managed, it feels quieter when this happens. Alden looked at him. You know why? No. Does Sabine? No. Sabine said. Also no. Rhea called from center, movement east. More of it. Alden kept the distinction. Correlation was not instruction, was not proof. He still had a decision to make with the facts in front of him. Lucan vanished. This time Alden did not step after him. Rhea said, east just got quieter. Alden watched movement peel away from the direct route to west, not retreat, redistribution. Senec had stopped attacking the obvious objective. That meant the next attack would be aimed at something Alden could not ignore. Senec changed the fight by leaving Quiet Cell alone. For half a minute, West took almost no direct pressure. Center did, so did the people holding it. Rhea called the first shift. 2 pushing center, 1 farther south of the east lane. Sabine looked past Alden toward west, and another moving around the isolation side. Alden saw enough to understand the broad shape. They're not trying to break west, he said. They're making us choose what to protect. Rhea said, that narrows it down to everything. Alden watched 1 attacker threaten center, while movement farther west touched the outer edge of the isolation area. He made the immediate call. Sabine, stay west. Rhea with me, they're trying to peel us off you. Sabine frowned. Maybe. You disagree? I think they want movement around the cell. I don't know whose. That was not enough to reverse the call. Alden moved with Rhea towards center. The first attacker gave ground. Too easily, Alden saw the mistake a second late. Not Sabine, he said. Rhea heard it too, the support side. A sharp impact sounded from west, not at Quiet Cell itself, but somewhere around the harder outer structure that protected it. Sabine's voice cut through. Alden. He turned. Another attacker appeared between them and west. The man closed the gap before Alden could turn back west. Their shoulders hit first. Alden's back struck concrete a fraction later, knocking the air out of him. The attacker did not press for a finish. He crowded the corridor, kept Alden's body turned away from West, and spent seconds. That told Alden more than the collision did. He shifted his weight, broke the pressure, and turned the man into the narrow space instead of trying to overpower him. Rhea hit the opening at the same moment. "Move," she said. The attacker recovered without chasing Rhea's opening. He reset in the narrow space and came back only when doing so blocked Alden's return west. Alden gave ground on purpose until the man committed enough to block his own retreat. Then Alden changed direction. The attacker stumbled into the hard edge of the center wall. Rhea forced him off the lane. Alden did not stay to finish a fight that no longer mattered. "West," he said. They moved. A second human threat cut in from the east side connection, close enough to catch one of Harrow's resident defenders before the defender could withdraw. Rhea saw it first. "I've got him." Alden had one clean choice and two bad outcomes: return to Sabine immediately, or stop the defender from being isolated. He chose the person in front of him. "Do it." Rhea went to the defender. Alden stepped into the attacker's path. The next seconds were elbows against hard wall, shoes slipping on grit, and a body that kept choosing obstruction over damage. Farther west, another strike reached the support area. Alden felt the purpose inside the resistance now. Not victory here. Time. He refused to give them more than they had already taken. The attacker drove him back once. Alden absorbed the impact, turned off the hard surface, and created enough space for the Harrow defender to move clear. Rhea pulled the defender towards center. Clear. Alden disengaged immediately. Local problem solved. Wrong problem. Sabine was still where he had left her, but the area beyond her had changed. Alden reached west and saw a section of the outer isolation support structure broken open along its exposed edge. Quiet Cell itself remained intact. What Senec's people had bought was physical reach into space that had been protected minutes earlier. Sabine touched the damaged edge once, then stopped. "How bad?" "Not the cell. I can see that. The envelope around it. Meaning? Meaning this area matters if it keeps getting worse." Alden looked toward the route the attackers had used. "They wanted the outer support," Sabine said. "They wanted access to affect it." Rhea arrived behind him with the resident defender still moving under his own power. "So we won?" Alden looked at her. Rhea followed his eyes west. "That bad? We won here. That is never how good news starts." Another hard strike traveled through the outer support side. The spacing was deliberate enough that Alden could feel the next decision being timed for him. Sabine looked at him. "You read the broad move, and missed the immediate target. You thought they were peeling us off me. They were peeling us off this. It cost us position." "Yes." Alden looked the damaged here. "What changes?" "The physical environment around the cell. Can they open it?" "No." "Break it?" "Not from what I can see." "Then what can they do?" "Make the conditions around it worse." "How much worse?" "I don't know yet," and looked towards center. "That's what Senec bought." "Access and time," Sabine said. "Not the cell, not yet." The shape was enough. Senec had found leverage outside an objective he still refused to destroy. Rhea flexed one hand, checked the defender beside her, then looked east again. "They're where?" "Split. One element center, one staying west side exterior." Alden said, "They want us stretched." Sabine answered, "They already got that." Rhea looked from the damaged support to Alden. "They spent people for something they can't use yet." "They expect to use it later," Alden said. Sabine said, "If they get another chance here, the cost rises." "How fast?" "I can't tell you yet." Rhea said, "Then what's the call?" Alden looked west, then center. "Protect people first. Deny the support side when we can." "And the cell?" Sabine asked. "Stays closed. No qualification?" "Not now." The next pressure hit center. Rhea turned toward it. "They're making the choice again." Alden moved with her. "Then we stopped giving them the same answer." Senec no longer needed to attack Quiet Cell. He only needed to make staying inside it progressively harder. The west side did not go quiet after Senec gained access to the outer support. It changed tone. The impacts became heavier, slower, deliberate. Dust shook loose around Quiet Cell. Nothing struck the cell itself. Alden watched the pattern. "They're testing how much the outside can take," Rhea said. Sabine kept one hand against the west wall. "Not testing. Progressing." "How fast?" "Fast enough that I won't call this static." Another impact moved through the floor. Senec had stopped trying to win the obvious fight. He was building a choice. Alden could hear the method in the spacing of the impacts. Center pressure kept Rhea turning away from west. West pressure kept Sabine near the damaged support. Senec's people did not need the final distance yet. They only needed Harrow's defenders spending time and bodies on conditions that kept worsening. The attack was no longer trying to overpower Alden. It was trying to make his priorities do the work. Alden looked at the empty spill zone. "Lucan," Sabine glanced at him. "You think he'll come because you ask?" "No." The air near the wall disagreed with itself. Lucan appeared. His face was more tired than before. His voice arrived slightly left of where he stood. "You again," Lucan said. "We're running out of useful ways to meet." "That sounds like Harrow. Did someone force you into quiet cell?" "No." "Then why are you still inside it?" Lucan looked toward the closed cell. "I went in." Alden held still. "You chose it." "Yes." Rhea called that pressure was building east without closing yet. Alden lifted a hand and kept his attention on Lucan. He asked why Lucan had chosen the cell. Lucan answered without ceremony. Ekawaki had gotten loose once. Other people had been hurt. Alden pushed only far enough to learn whether the past event changed the present decision. Lucan refused the story behind it and gave him the only part that mattered. The cell had been his decision. No plea, no invitation to admire him, just a correction to Alden's premise. "You knew what staying meant." "Yes, and you still chose it." "Yes." Another impact rolled through west. Lucan's image tightened with the strain of remaining coherent. Alden turned to Sabine. She had dust in her hair now and one palm still against the west wall, feeling each shudder arrive. "Give me the strongest answer you can on full release. I can't call it safe." She looked toward Lucan, then back to the damaged support. "The cell suppresses Ekawak. Change the containment and the state changes with it. I can't tell you in which direction." Lucan could not either. Alden looked back at him. "When you appear like this, what happens to you?" "It usually feels quieter." "Usually?" "In here. Around me." Sabine said, "Harrow has seen quieter periods around some coherent manifestations." Alden looked at her. "Enough to call the projection helpful?" "No. Enough to say they happened together." Lucan gave a tired half-smile. "She does love a narrow answer. She keeps us alive with them." So far, the support took another hit. This one sounded closer. Sabine turned toward the outer isolation side. "Alden, what changed?" "The support state." "Translate." "It's getting less forgiving." "How long before staying in the primary cell becomes the worse option?" "I don't know." Rhea moved back from center long enough to ask whether Harrow had another option. Sabine hesitated, eyes tracking a thin fall of dust from the support seam. Then she told him about the shielded emergency holding alcove near west, built for short structural or medical contingencies. It offered partial suppression, less than quiet cell but more than open space. Alden made sure he had heard the distinction correctly before he went any farther. Lucan's expression hardened. "No. You know the alcove?" "Yes." "Can it hold you temporarily?" Lucan looked at Sabine. She answered. "It can reduce exposure. It cannot reproduce the primary cell. And we don't know what transition does." "No." Rhea said, "So the choices are stay where Senec is making things worse, open the cell, or use the compromise nobody trusts." Sabine gave a tight nod. "That is the shape of it." Alden watched Lucan. "Full release is off the table." Lucan's shoulders eased by a fraction. "That does not mean I'm moving you." "Good. It means I'm not confusing outside with safe." Another vibration passed through the west wall. Dust drifted down near the sealed cell approach. Alden saw Lucan look toward it. "If the physical condition gets worse," Alden said, "we may have to move you a short distance." "No, Lucan." "No, you chose containment. I heard you." "Then hear the rest. The transition is uncertain. So is leaving you under this." Lucan had no immediate reply. Sabine said, "The alcove is a real emergency option. That is all I can support." "Partial suppression." "Yes. Physical protection from this support damage. Better than remaining here if the outer state crosses a certain point." "Can you tell me where that point is?" "Not yet." Rhea looked east. Senec may. Another controlled impact struck the support side. Alden felt it through his boots. Dust kept falling from a seam near the cell approach. Sabine watched it instead of Lucan. The physical problem was no longer theoretical. Senec was not opening quiet cell. He was making the answer arrive before Alden wanted it. Lucan's projection became harder to trust as present. "Alden, what? Do not call moving me a rescue." Alden looked at the closed cell. "No. If it happens, it is a temporary move to keep you alive." Lucan held his gaze. Better. Then he was gone. Rhea said, center pressure rising. Sabine touched the wall again. West 2. Full release was no longer an objective. Staying put was becoming a risk. Between them sat one narrow option that preserved some suppression and required Lucan to cooperate. It was not safe. It was simply the least bad choice Alden could see. The decision stopped being theoretical when another impact shifted the west support under Alden's boots. Sabine moved toward the outer edge of the cell approach. That's enough, she said. How bad? Bad enough that I would not leave an occupied chamber under it. Lucan was still inside quiet cell. Full release was already rejected. The emergency alcove remained the only option between two failures. Rhea checked center. They're building pressure again. Alden looked at Sabine. If we move him, what can you guarantee? Nothing useful. What can you support? The alcove preserves partial suppression. The primary cell is better for Echiwaki. The physical environment around it is becoming unsafe for Lucan. Transition risk? Unknown. Staying? Not unknown anymore. That decided it. Alden addressed Lucan through the local channel. Lucan, we move. No. The support is failing around you. Then hold it. We can't hold structure with bodies. I said no. Short move. Emergency alcove. Partial suppression. Not full release. Another human-made impact struck outside west. The floor moved. Rhea braced against the wall. That one was closer. Sabine said, Lucan, remaining where you are is now the larger physical risk. You don't know what moving does. No, she said, I know what staying does if this continues. The next sound from inside was Lucan breathing. Then, temporary, yes. No farther. Yes. Lucan waited. All right. The transfer began with Sabine at the containment edge, Alden close enough to steady Lucan if his legs failed, and Rhea watching center. Lucan crossed the first step under his own power. Nothing about the move worked unless he kept choosing the next one. Alden saw Lucan physically for the first time. He looked smaller than the projections had made him seem. More ordinary. Reachable. The private rule arrived without permission. Do not leave them. Move, Alden said. Rhea held the near approach. Sabine stayed on the containment side and called only what mattered. Still within partial suppression. Lucan stepped forward. The first few feet passed cleanly. The hard reflections in the corridor stayed where they belonged, and the scrape of Lucan's shoe came from the floor beneath him. Alden felt his shoulders loosen before he could stop them. Rhea looked back. This might actually be the least terrible idea. Keep watching center. That was almost optimism. Lucan reached the emergency alcove threshold. Sabine checked the state around him. Physical transition stable. Alden looked at her. Echiwaki, no obvious increase. For 3 seconds, the compromise held. Rhea said, tell me we get to keep this version. Sabine answered, I'm not telling you anything yet. At the alcove threshold, Lucan's body kept moving, but the corridor changed around him. The familiar, coherent presence in the spill zone thinned away, and for a moment the west passage seemed unnaturally quiet. Alden looked toward the spill zone. Empty. No projection. That should have been reassuring. Instead, Rhea's voice came from behind him while she stood ahead and to the right. Alden? He turned the wrong way, caught himself. Trusted the wall. Position. Same position. Sabine looked at Lucan. Disturbance is increasing. Projection is down. Yes. Meaning? I don't know. A movement at center seemed to come from west. Rhea swore. That is new. Lucan gripped the alcove edge. Put me back. Sabine said, we can't reverse under pressure without creating another transition. Alden looked toward center. The attack came hard, not probing this time. Senec's people had chosen this moment. Rhea. Center. Already there. A shot cracked from center and struck the wall near the west approach, scattering grit across the floor. Then bodies came through the opening before the distortion could settle. Alden moved to meet the first man and found his hearing half a step behind what his eyes were showing him. He trusted touch. Wall left. Floor seam under his boot. Rhea head. The first attacker closed enough to force contact. Alden blocked the forward drive and redirected him away from the alcove. A second figure entered from center. Rhea caught that pressure. 2, I see them. He did not exactly. He saw one position and heard another. The attacker in front tried to keep Alden occupied while the second pushed toward Rhea. Same logic as before. Consume time here. Gain something there. Alden broke contact and shifted toward Rhea. Too late. The second attacker hit Rhea before Alden could close the distance. Her right shoulder struck the hard corridor edge and she dropped to one knee, breath cut short. When she tried to catch herself, the arm buckled instead of taking her weight. "Rhea, I'm up." She tested the arm once against the wall. Nothing useful came back. "Arm's not giving me force." "Can you move?" "Yes." "Stay mobile, don't fight through it." "Wasn't planning to." The first attacker came back. Alden met him in close space, breath and impact and blocked distance. He trusted pressure against his forearm more than the sound of the man's feet. He created enough separation for Rhea to retreat towards Sabine. "West side still open," Rhea said. "Keep it that way." Another hostile element hit center. Senec had committed. Alden glanced at Lucan. The man remained physically inside the emergency alcove, conscious and gripping the edge, but no coherent projection formed anywhere. The absence had looked like improvement for one brief moment. Now the corridor could not agree on where voices lived. Sabine said, "Distortion is still climbing." "Can you stabilize him here?" "Not enough." "Can we put him back?" "Not under this pressure without risking another unstable move." Alden's shoulder still carried the force of the last collision, but the worse recognition settled lower, under his ribs. He had moved Lucan away from a physical danger Senec had made real, and the transition had opened exactly the kind of window Senec was willing to spend people to exploit. Alden still did not understand why the projection had vanished as everything else worsened. He did not need that answer to see the tactical consequence. Senec was waiting for the move, he said. Rhea, pale but upright, held her injured arm close. "He made us choose it. He knew exactly when we'd move." "No. He made it the best choice we had." "That is not the same thing. That was worse." A new impact struck near west. Lucan flinched. "Alden, I'm here. Something's wrong." "I know." No projection formed. The corridor answered one human shout from three wrong directions. Alden anchored on the wall, Rhea's actual position, Sabine beside the alcove, and Lucan physically contained but less stable than before. His rescue had worked at the level he understood. Lucan was out of the endangered primary chamber, and everything that mattered had become harder. The corridor kept giving Alden bad information. A shout from center seemed to come from west. A footstep behind him belonged to a man crossing 10 feet ahead. The harder Alden tried to listen through the distortion, the less useful sound became. Wall on his left. Alcove behind Sabine. Rhea 3 steps closer to center, one arm held tight against her body. Those were facts. "Rhea," Alden said, "you stay out of close contact." "I had gathered that." "Can you still move?" "Yes." "Can you still see the center approaches?" "Yes." "Then you call changes. You do not stop them yourself." Her mouth tightened, but she nodded. "That I can do." Another hostile push touched center and withdrew before Alden could force it farther back. Not a full attack. Senec was keeping them compressed. Alden looked at Lucan. The man was physically inside the emergency alcove, awake, breathing hard, and no projection existed anywhere near the spill zone. Quiet. Too quiet. Alden turned to Sabine. "Before we moved him, you said some coherent manifestations came with quieter periods." She braced one hand against the alcove edge as another false footstep ran along the wrong wall. That was the pattern Harrow saw. Lucan felt the same thing from inside it. And now the projection is gone while everything else gets worse. "Yes." She took a breath before adding, "That part is new. I can describe it. I cannot explain it yet." Another voice broke across the corridor from the wrong direction. Alden anchored himself on Rhea's visible position. "Lucan." Lucan looked at him. "When you were projecting clearly before, what did it feel like?" "Better." "Define better." "Less pressure every time?" "No." "Enough times to notice?" "Yes." Sabine said, "That matches what Harrow had seen." Alden looked at her. "And after the move?" The coherent projection dropped, while the rest got worse. "Yes." Alden asked if coincidence could still account for it. Sabine said it could. The transfer itself could matter, and so could the weaker suppression. She refused to rank those possibilities while the evidence was still changing. Rhea watched center. "So we have an answer shaped like 3 Mabes." "For the mechanism," Sabine said. "Not for what is happening in front of us." Alden watched center. Senec had not waited for certainty. He had waited for transition. The moment Lucan moved from the primary cell into weaker suppression, Senec's pressure had changed from testing to commitment. That did not prove what the projection was. It proved Senec had wanted the state Alden had created. Alden looked at Lucan again. "When you project coherently, Do you feel like containment is failing? Lucan shook his head. What does it feel like? Like something is lining up. With what? I don't know. Does silence feel safer? Lucan looked at him for a long second. No, that was enough to change the problem. Not solve it, change it. Alden turned to Sabine. Give me the line you are willing to stand on. She watched Lucan for a second before answering. Coherent projection keeps showing up in the quieter states. Now it is absent while the distortion is worse. I no longer think we can treat projection as simple leakage. Part of the stable condition? Possibly part of it. Possibly inseparable from it. I won't claim more. Alden could work with weaker language. He had made the last decision as if manifestation meant failure of containment, and physical reachability meant rescue. The evidence no longer supported either assumption. Rhea called, "Movement Center." 3 this time. Alden looked toward the opening. "Closesting. They're waiting for us to move Lucan again," Sabine said likely. Lucan's voice came from the alcove. "Then don't." Alden turned. Hours earlier, that sentence would have sounded like surrender. Now it sounded like an objective. Agreed. Lucan looked at him without relief. Alden understood why. Agreement meant Lucan stayed inside. It meant there would be no extraction after the fight, no clean image of a rescued man walking east into sunlight, no way to pretend freedom and safety had become the same thing. Alden accepted the cost. "Sabine, your job is west. It already was. Now it is the mission. Keep Lucan in the most stable, contained state we have. Do not move him again unless staying becomes physically impossible. And if it does, we solve that problem when it exists." Sabine nodded. Alden looked at Rhea. "You cannot hold a lane in close contact. Thank you for the reminder. You can watch too." Rhea understood. "Resident defenders. Use them. You see a secondary element shifting toward west, you call it and move people before they get there. With one arm. With your eyes." That was almost flattering. It wasn't. She gave him the smallest smile. "Better." Another short burst of movement hit center. Alden stepped into the pressure long enough to force the lead attacker to hesitate, then returned behind cover before the second man could fix him there. Senec was still trying to hold them in reaction. That ended now. Alden looked at Sabine. "Can Lucan stay here through a fight? For now. Can we improve the current state without moving him? Not by anything I can promise. Then we stop touching the wrong problem." Rhea said. "Then the human problem comes first." Alden looked east towards center. Yes, the mission had changed. Not extract Lucan, not move him, not solve Echoake, stop the humans creating the conditions that made every containment choice worse. Alden felt the shape settle. Senec had been attacking their priorities from the beginning. Now Alden finally had one Senec could not manipulate. Hold west, break the human pressure. Rhea, keep center eyes and watch for a split. Done. Sabine, stay with Lucan. I know. Alden checked the physical line from center toward west, ignored a voice that seemed to come from the wrong wall, and trusted what he could touch. Then we take initiative. Rhea looked east. They're expecting us to defend. Good. He moved before Senec could force another choice. The first hostile position at center reacted late. Alden drove the counterattack into that hesitation. Not to chase men east, but to take back the distance Senec had been using to control west. Behind him, Rhea started redirecting Harrow's remaining defenders. Sabine stayed with Lucan, and for the first time since the assault began, Alden was no longer trying to rescue the man Senec wanted. He was coming on for the pressure around him. Alden took back center in small pieces, never far enough east to give Senec the chase he had wanted from the beginning. The first attacker slipped behind a concrete support and tried to draw him through the opening. Alden stopped at the hard edge. A report snapped in the enclosed space. A chip of concrete skipped across the floor near his boot. He stayed where the cover worked and shifted 2 Harrow defenders behind him. "Hold center," he said. "Make them come through us." One defender nodded. A false footstep sounded behind Alden's right shoulder. He ignored it and watched the actual opening. Rhea called from farther back, east side changing, 2 pulling wide. Toward west, not yet. Alden found her with his eyes. Her right arm stayed close to her body. She had placed herself where she could watch the center approach and the south edge without needing to enter close contact. Senec's main element tried center again. One man showed himself long enough to pull attention. Another cut across from east. Alden blocked the second approach with the defenders already in place. and the pair withdrew before they could regain the distance they had been using to threaten west. Rhea said, "They noticed." "So did I." Her head turned before the rest of her body. Secondary pair. South edge, moving west now. She pointed with her good arm, not at the attackers but at two Harrow defenders near center. "You two. With me. Stay off them unless they force through." Alden watched her start west with the defenders. Her injured arm never left its guarded position. "You have it?" he asked. "I have eyes." That was enough. Senec's main element pressed harder as soon as Rhea peeled away. Alden saw the split for what it was. If he turned west to help her, center opened. If he stayed, the secondary pair had a chance to reach Sabine. This time he did not try to solve both problems himself. He stayed at center. "Sabine." Her voice came from west, displaced by the echo-wake but recognizable. "Here. Two coming your way. I see the approach. Keep Lucan where he is." "I intend to." Alden drove his attention back to center. One attacker committed across the opening while another covered his retreat. Alden met the first man at close range, gave a half-step when the pressure hit, then let a Harrow defender fill the space beside him. The attacker lost the straight path west and had to turn away. Rhea's voice cut in. "Stop there." Alden could not see the secondary pair, but he could see Sabine moving. She left the exposed side of the alcove, dragged the damaged physical barrier farther across the west approach, then planted herself where anyone reaching Lucan would have to come around her first. The first secondary attacker adjusted toward that opening. Rhea saw it early. Left side, close the gap. The two Harrow defenders shifted together. The attacker met bodies and hard wall before he reached Sabine. His partner tried the opposite side. "Other side," Rhea said. "Now." She stayed a pace behind the contact, using her voice and sight instead of the arm she could no longer trust. The defenders moved when she called it, and the second route closed, before the man could turn it into access. Sabine used those seconds to pull Lucan's protected space deeper behind the barrier without moving him out of the alcove. Dust dropped from the damaged support as she settled the obstruction against a stronger edge. The secondary pair stalled. At center, the main assault changed tempo. The men facing Alden stopped trying to gain west themselves. They widened just enough to clear a path between them. Victor Senec entered it. Alden recognized him from Sabine's identification and from the way the others made room without looking back for instruction. Senec was older than most of his team and carried the same restraint Alden had been reading all night. His gaze went past Alden toward west, measured the blocked access, then returned. For the first time, Alden saw urgency disturb that patience. Senec had watched the defenders stop trying to move Lucan. The indirect method was dying in front of him. He came forward personally. Rhea called, "Secondary pair held. Not finished. Keep them there." "With what?" "What you have." Senec advanced with one man beside him. Alden moved the center defenders to cut the second man away from the direct approach. The separation lasted only a second, but Senec used it to drive straight for the remaining path west. Alden intercepted him. Their first collision put Alden back against the center wall. Senec did not waste effort trying to punish him. Every shove and turn was meant to get a shoulder past and reopen the access line. That made his purpose easy to read even as accumulated fatigue made him difficult to stop. Alden blocked west and let the fight stay ugly and close. A false shout came from behind him. He ignored it. Senec's forearm against his, the wall at his back, the scrape of shoes on grit. Those were reliable. Senec drove again. Alden lost half a step and nearly lost the line with it. He saw Senec glance toward west, measuring the gap rather than the man in front of him. Alden let the gap look larger. Senec committed. Alden turned with the surge and forced him away from the west approach. They hit the corridor edge together. Senec recovered first and tried to cut around him, but Alden stayed between him and Lucan instead of chasing control of the whole fight. Each failed attempt cost Senec another second. Those seconds belonged to the team. Rhea's defenders were tightening the secondary problem. Sabine remained at Lucan's side behind the physical barrier. At center, the Harrow defenders kept Senec's remaining man from closing back into the fight. Senec's breathing had changed. The patience was still there, but the available choices were not. He drove Alden backward again, one heavy step, and then another. Rhea's voice came from west. Clear enough. A Harrow defender appeared at center, returning from the secondary fight. Senec saw him. The calculation crossed his face in a single glance. Less time, fewer routes, one chance left. He went for it. Alden was waiting for the overcommitment. He absorbed the contact, turned with Senec's forward drive, and forced him out of the west line into open center. The returning defender closed the escape side while the defender already at center moved in from the other direction. Senec tried once to break the enclosure. Alden held the access line, and the other two men took away the remaining space. The struggle ended on the floor with Senec still conscious, but no longer able to advance. Alden kept control long enough for the defender to secure him, then pushed himself upright against the wall. "Senec secured," the defender said. Alden needed 2 breaths before he trusted his legs. He looked west. Rhea's pair had forced the secondary element away from Sabine. One attacker was down. The other had stopped trying to advance with both routes closed by resident defenders. Rhea stood behind them, pale, her injured arm still held tight. The rest of Senec's force saw their commander taken and the west access gone. They did not dissolve all at once, but their coordinated pressure did. Harrow's defenders pushed them out of useful positions until the last attempt to reach west failed. Then the human attack stopped. Alden stood in center and listened. Echoaky distortion still displaced a voice by a few feet. Dust hung in the hard interior light. His shoulder ached from the wall, and his legs felt the accumulated cost of every close exchange. Harrow remained damaged. Rhea's arm remained unreliable. Sabine was still protecting Lucan in the emergency alcove. Defeating Senec had solved none of that. Alden walked west. Rhea met him halfway. "You look terrible. You first. My arm still doesn't work. Then keep treating it that way." She gave him a tired look and stepped aside. Sabine was checking the damaged surroundings and the alcove without moving Lucan. She looked up as Alden approached. Human pressure, over. Senec, alive, secured. Lucan remained physically inside the alcove. No coherent projection had returned. Alden stopped outside the immediate containment space. He had access now and no human opponent forcing his hand. He left the distance between himself and Lucan alone. The assault was over. The choice after it still belonged to Lucan. The fight had ended, but Harrow had not settled with it. West still carried the damage. Dust clung to the floor near the isolation approach. One section of the outer support stood at a slight wrong angle where Senec's people had worked it loose. The emergency alcove held Lucan. Sabine remained beside him. Rhea leaned against the wall a few steps back, her injured arm secured close to her body. Alden stopped outside the immediate containment space. No one was shooting. His ears did not trust that yet. A scrape from center seemed to come from behind him. He looked, found the real source, and let the correction pass without comment. Sabine noticed. "Still displaced? Some. Improving? I don't know. That is acceptable." Alden looked at her arm. "How much use? Enough to point at things. Force? No, keep it that way." The exchange helped only because it did not pretend anything had gone away. Alden looked toward the alcove. Lucan sat inside, awake, physically present, no projection. Sabine checked the damaged area again. "Current state?" Alden asked. "Better than during the transition. Stable? Stable enough to hold where he is. For how long? I didn't say long." Alden nodded. That was Sabine, not more certainty than the facts could carry. "Can he go back to the primary cell?" "Not while the support around it looks like this." "Can he stay here?" "For now, yes." Lucan looked toward Alden. Alden moved no closer. "There's something I owe you," he said. Lucan's expression tightened. "That sounds unpleasant. It was my decision to move you." "Yes, I had reasons. They were defensible." Lucan waited. Alden did not use that as cover. They were still wrong enough to help Senec. "Rhea got hurt. Your condition got worse. That belongs to me." Rhea shifted the sling with her good hand and stayed quiet. Lucan studied him. "You want me to say you did your best?" "No." "Good." Alden accepted that too. "I'm not asking you to forgive the decision." "Also good." Sabine said, "We can spend the next 10 minutes being emotionally efficient, or we can answer the only current question that matters." Rhea looked at her. "There she is." Alden turned back to Lucan. "Senec is secured. His people no longer control access to West. No one is forcing another move." Lucan nodded once. "The primary cell stays closed unless you ask otherwise and unless there is a safe reason to change that." Lucan looked at the damaged support, then at Sabine. "What are my actual options?" Sabine answered. "Remain in the emergency alcove under current partial suppression while we hold the present state. Or attempt another transition later if physical conditions improve enough to justify it. Full release? Sabine did not soften it. I cannot call that safe. Lucan looked at Alden. Alden said nothing. That was the point. Lucan had spent the assault correcting everyone else's assumptions about what rescue was supposed to mean. Now there was finally room for his answer without a weapon, collapsing support, or Senec's timing attached to it. Lucan said, "Then I stay contained." Alden kept his voice level. "Here? For now, in the safest containment you can actually support." Sabine said, "That is the alcove at this moment. And when the primary cell is physically safe again," Lucan looked toward the closed door beyond the damaged support. "I go back." Alden did not ask whether he was sure. He had already made that mistake in another form. "All right," he said. No ceremony followed. No one opened the door. Rhea shifted against the wall and winced when her injured arm moved with her. Alden saw it and waited until she had settled the sling again before turning back to Lucan. Sabine was watching the spill zone. Alden followed her gaze. At first there was nothing there. Then Lucan appeared, not physically. The projection formed inside the same bounded area where Alden had first seen him. No glow, no spectacle. Just Lucan standing where his body was not. Alden waited for the voice to arrive from the wrong wall. It did not. "Still me," Lucan said. The voice came from where the projection stood. Sabine exhaled once. Alden looked at her. "Meaning? Current coherence is better. Stable? More stable than before. That is all." Lucan said, "It feels quieter." Alden looked at the projected face. "Same as before? Close enough to complain about." Rhea said, "Promising." Sabine corrected her. "Right. Never accidentally sound hopeful around you. Try not to." Alden did not mistake the projection for a cure. It was one present condition behaving better than it had during the worst part of the fight. Useful precisely because Alden did not have to make it mean more than that. Lucan looked toward the closed quiet cell. Then back at Alden. "Leave it closed." Alden nodded. "It stays closed." The projection held for another few seconds.